Hi, I'm Sue LaPlante, and today I'm going to demonstrate a skill my mom taught me, and that is making a balsam wreath. So the first thing that I do is in Grand Lake Stream here, I go tipping on the Downeast Lakes Land Trust property. And they have a procedure, very simple, that you can get a tipping permit from Ernest Carl, who's our Downeast Lakes Land Trust forester. And with COVID, the office has been closed, and all I did was make contact with the trust, and Ernest sent me the permit by email, and then I sent him a signed copy back. And so what this permit allows me to do is tip for balsam fir and white pine and on the land trust property. And this just helps them know who's out on the property and the amount of tips you might be collecting. And so I said I want to make 6 wreaths for my family. So I have my permit in hand, and I take that out into the woods with me just in case someone stops, a warden or someone from the trust or Ernest is out and about, just checking in on things. So that's an important piece if you plan to tip on other people's property, to get permission, even if it's a neighbor's or a friend's. When I go out tipping, it's best to go tipping November 1st or after, which is here in Maine is hunting season. So I always make sure I wear my orange jacket and a hat so that people can see me if they're out there hunting. So again, that's an important thing if you're out in the woods tipping, that you are visible to other people. The product we're looking for is balsam fir, and this is a great example of balsam fir. It is a spiky stems. When you break off a little piece of it, you have that beautiful balsam smell. It tends to be lighter on the back side and darker on the front side. And I find that the more sun the balsam gets, the greener and lusher it is. So this is a great example of a piece that got a lot of sun. This is maybe an example of a piece that didn't have as much sun, but that's fine. You can always put those into your bundles and bury them in the bundles as you're making the wreaths. So when you go tipping, you're looking for the balsam. And I try to get them about the size of my hand. You don't want to go much more than 10 inches because you don't want to damage the trees. And I try to take a few tips off trees and then move on to some other trees, so you're not creating any damage for the trees. They will regrow off of the side sections in a 3-year time period, so you're not harming them unless you overly tip on a tree or take too larger, longer pieces off the tree. So I try not to waste too much. I try to take just about the size of my hand or a little bigger. This is a 12-inch wreath ring, and you can get those at most hardware stores. I try to buy mine locally here. And spools of wire. This is specifically wreath wire, and it's easy to work with. So those are really the 2 important things you need. The one other piece is a little pair of nippers, so that you can cut your wire or trim your balsam fir as needed. They do sell these rings in a smaller size, 10-inch or 16 or 18 inches if you have a great big space that you want to make a wreath for. So I'm going to start creating my wreath, and what I like to do is I take 5 pieces of balsam fir. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I bundle them up. And you notice an important thing is I have all the green side out, the dark side out. All my light side is to the back. And so you've got your colorful green in the front. I always make my wreaths as one-sided wreaths. And what I mean by that is all of my greens are facing the outside. If you want to make a two-sided wreath, for instance, if you're putting it in a glass window that you're going to see from the outside and the inside, you can separate and turn some that are on the back the opposite way. So you've got green on both sides of your wreath. I always put mine against the barn or against a solid door. So I'm going to show you today a one-sided wreath. So I'm going to start out by laying that bundle, and I take my wire and I begin to wind it around very tightly, and I'm holding the stems of the bundle and I'm wiring it as tightly as I can around and around, and I usually try to go around 4 or 5 times because you want them as tightly as you can onto the ring so that they're not flopping around. And the tighter you get them and the closer you keep your wire to the ring, the easier it is to manage it. So I just have a little bit that I'm working with. If you get a big long string of wire, then it's hard to manage. So I've gone around, then I'm going to take my next bundle and I'm going to, again, all the green side is out, I'm going to lay that just below what I wired on, and I'm going to continue that process of wiring every time, pulling it tightly so it's bound to the ring really well. And you notice I like to do mine outside because it can be a little messy, and actually the balsam is easier to work with when it's cold. And that's an important piece when you're tipping, why they say November 1st is a good time to go tipping. And I like to wait till you get a good cold frost, at least one good cold frost. And I like to go tipping either early in the day or late in the day when it's a little cooler, and that way the tips break off easier and they're easier to manage. So again, I'm trying to create sort of a spray effect. I'm going to take my next bundle, and again I'm going to lay it, so I'm trying to work right around the ring. Tight, tight, tight. And that's one of the keys. Make it nice and tight. And you notice I'm not cutting my wire. I'm just working off the same spool of wire as I move round and round. My next bundle of 5. And a lot of people like to buy decorations for their wreaths. You can buy bows, but you can also make bows. People go and find pine cones, and you can wire those on for decorations, or other types of things you find in the outdoors. So it has a lot of room for creativity. So I'm on to my next bundle. There's some twigs in it. And again, I'm fanning around. So you notice that my bundles are all going in the same direction. I'm working from one place on. And again, I'm pulling tight. I'm trying to keep my wire close. And what I usually do is I go tipping, and then I put my tips under the garage or in a cool place. And then when I have a day that I have time, and I'll get the tips out and I'll make a wreath. So it's only taken me a few minutes, and I'm halfway around. You notice I had my bundles ready, which some people like to do. Other people will just make their bundles as they go along. So again, it's up to you. And you can see why it's a good idea to do it outside. I'll put a sheet or something under if you're working inside. I save all these little pieces, and I've got some other little pieces, scrap pieces of balsam, and I'll make the balsam sachets out of them. You just need a little piece of cloth and fill it with the balsam fir. And then you've got another little thing you can throw in your drawer. So I'm continuing around. It's a fun thing to do, and my mom has passed away now, but I love every year making some wreaths for our family members and for ourselves, and it's a great reminder of the skill my mom taught me how to do when I was a little girl. This is an example of a finished wreath, and you can see when I turn it around, when I say I was making the one-sided wreaths, you don't see this, of course, when you hang it up against the garage. When you get to the end, you have to pull back where you started and tuck in your bundle so that you have a nice covering. I usually put a wire I just cut the wire when I'm ready so that I have something to hang it with. And this is where I usually put my bow, because sometimes that's the place that's not as full because you're trying to tuck in. So once you put a bow on there, it covers up if you have a little gap there. So no need to worry about that. And then some people, this is pretty nice and round. Sometimes you have things that are sticking out that are a little longer, and you can just give it a haircut, as I call. So you might, if you like yours perfectly rounded, you can just take a pair of scissors and give it a little trim, and then it becomes a perfectly round balsam Christmas wreath.